Globally, there are over a billion pets in the world, with dogs and cats making up the majority.
Well, this video is going to be a hard one to do. Involves death of one of our pets. I've had pets all my life, and I'm always just gutted when they die. So yeah, sorry. It's hard to talk about.
Just going by the average lifespan, there's probably 100,000 or so pets that die every day. And if you're a pet owner and you've ever lost a pet, especially ones you've had for a very long time, you know just how painful that can be.
So even as a kid, when a pet would die, I'd cry and cry and cry for days. And you talk to people and you ask, do my pets go to heaven? The conventional wisdom that was told to me was no, they do not go to heaven. Because you see, they don't have a soul. Well, here I am, all these years later, after having been an atheist for quite a few years and trying to believe in God. And so I did some research on the whole thing, which is kind of like what I do when I don't have an answer. So what did I find? Well, I found there's no real consensus on the subject. So what did I find out from doing a little bit of research? Well, apparently the Catholics don't have a definitive statement on it. The Pope has made some statements that sort of that animals, she suggested animals might go to heaven, but there's no real solace there. There's no definitive statement. Yeah, they go to heaven. Now the Protestants, their views vary a little bit more widely. And so some are like the people that told me when I was a little girl that they do not go to heaven. And that kind of makes sense because I grew up in more Protestant kind of a background and was around Protestants, not Catholics so much. So that's where that idea came from. But, somewhat optimistically, some do believe that, your pets do go to heaven. Apparently the Orthodox Christians emphasize the unique nature of human beings, and they're more hardline that there's no unanimous stance that pets do go to heaven. So where are we at? But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. Let me tell you a little bit of what happened this past month. And as many of you know, it's been a rough month, so I haven't been posting. I did have a bright spot in it, and I'll tell you about that a little later. Good to end on a happy note, right? So it began in June, late June. And at first it was the kitty that was very, very sick. She was hiding. She was, I just couldn't find her. When I'd find her and bring her out, she wouldn't eat. It became very apparent very quickly. Something was very seriously wrong. And about the same time, I noticed the dog kind of moping and not eating. And so I tried to get the cat into the vet. And of course, it was the weekend because these things always seem to happen then. And so I was waiting for Monday for the vet to open. And when I called on Monday, it turned out they didn't have any openings and they couldn't see her. They did, however, tell me about an ER. And I thought, well, if I'd have known they wouldn't see her on Monday, I would have gone to the ER on the weekend. I had thought it was best that she see someone who is familiar with her history. So anyway, I rush off to the ER, and boy, I'll tell you, they worked a miracle. They brought her back. They gave her oxygen. They hydrated her. They ran a whole bunch of tests. Of course, she's almost 18, so she's got a lot of like organ type stuff failing. But overall, before we left, she was eating. And, before I left, I did ask them about the dog. I said, is it possible that the dog is depressed because he can see how sick she is and they're good buddies? I'll show you just how good they lay together and sleep together. She used to be afraid of him for a couple months. She stayed on the upper floor because she wouldn't come down because the dog was here. But then they became such good buddies. So as you can see from some of the photos here, Yeah, they'd sleep together, they'd play fight, they had a good time. So I thought maybe the dog was just depressed, and they said, yeah, it's possible. So then I got the cat in to see the regular vet for a follow-up. And then we came to discover she had hyperthyroidism. And so though she was gravely ill, there was a treatment for it. So that really made me feel good. But then the dog took a turn, very seriously turn, and we rushed him off to the vet. And unfortunately for him, there was no treatment. He was in end-stage kidney and liver failure. Well, the grandkids were out that week, and so it was rough. I didn't want them to see the dog pass away, and the cat had been sick, and we had some fun stuff, but we also had a very sad day when we got the news. And the dog hung on until after they'd left, and he passed away. But yeah, it just kills me when animals die. So to go back to what's the answer? Do they go to heaven? Will I see them again? I mean, isn't that what everyone wants to know, right? Sorry. Okay, so if we look at some of the other religions, Judaism, their teachings suggest that animals do not have the same type of soul as humans, and that they do not have an afterlife. So there's not any encouragement there. Some modern Jewish thinkers, I guess, are a little bit more flexible and open to the idea. In Islam, their teachings emphasize the mercy of Allah and suggest that all creatures will be resurrected. So I thought that was a bit encouraging. But the fate of animals isn't really explicitly talked about in their texts. So it's, again, a bit of a gray area. Now, Hinduism and Buddhism, there's a little bit more encouragement there, principally because of the belief in reincarnation. If you could be reincarnated from an animal and then you go to a higher level, and although sometimes I think some of our pets are at that higher level when they get a good home. Not the poor soul ones that are out in the street with no homes, but the ones that have a good home. Maybe that is the higher level of reincarnation. I don't know. But anyway, there's the possibility that they come back and they're reborn as humans and other creatures. So I don't know that means we'll actually meet them again. I think that seems kind of unlikely. And Buddhists, too, have a similar concept of the cycle of rebirth. So all living things are part of that cycle. So still I'm searching. Of course, there's secular beliefs, and I think a lot of people would like to think that they see their pets again, and certainly have stories of people that talk about that. Myself, I have known that in the past when my pets have died, I have felt them jump up onto my bed at night. So I think their little spirit I think they have a soul. I think their spirit lives on. And so what does the Bible say? Well, there are a number of chapters, I can quote you, that sort of tangentially talk about God's thoughts on pets and animals in general. I'm going to take that as a win for yes, they do go to heaven. But the biggest thing of all is when I was at the vet with my cat at the ER, and I was talking just because we were there many hours. I was just casually chatting with her, and I said, because they were all commenting on how sweet she was and how much they loved her. She was such an easy patient, so good, didn't complain or try to bite them, and she was obviously very, very sick. And I said, yes, and it's strange because the other cat that I got with her, because they were both somebody couldn't keep them anymore, so I took them on when they were about 5 years old. One of them has this very sweet personality. The other is so grumpy, we call him Grunion. Now, Grunion will bite you if you don't pet him enough. Grunion will bite you if you pet him too much. Grunion is grumpy. That's what Grunion means in Spanish. My husband gave him that nickname. So Grunion is a really difficult one. And if you try to take Grunion to the vet, it's a nightmare. You've seen those videos of cats bouncing off walls. Imagine that. It's like that. She's I call cats all she's. It's just my own little idiosyncratic thing, because cats seem like girls and dogs seem like boys to me. Anyway, so he jumps off walls, and he's got a grumpy personality. So I was saying, it's kind of interesting how they all have their own little personality that's unique to them, and that's why we love them so much. And she said, it's not just people's pets that have their own personality. She said she used to work with wildlife, and she said if you watch the squirrels and animals out in the wild long enough, they too have their own little personalities, each and every one of them. They're not like cookie cutters, they're all the same. They have a personality. So I got to thinking, why would God give them all a unique personality if he didn't value in them and that they wouldn't live on forever? So I'm going to kind of end with the presumption that I will live to see, I will get to see the dog again, and when the cats pass, I will get to see them too, along with all the other kitties that I've had my whole life. So yeah, if you're a pet lover like me, I think that there's some encouragement there that yes, indeed, you will see your pet again. Let me know your thoughts. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. And a great tomorrow, hopefully. Sorry for crying so much. I just don't do death really well.